Hi.
Hi.
I'm so excited that we finally made this happen.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
It has been a long time coming. And to catch everybody up, let's see, serendipitously, you and I ran into each other at a local fair here in Albany, Oregon called Rasani Fair that my friend Vicky does. And she's your friend too, right?
Yep.
Okay. And we were at my booth and you walked up and I knew you were familiar, but we couldn't place where. And then we somehow magically figured out that we met each other 9 years ago, right?
God, it's been that long, hasn't it?
I think it's been at least.
It was.
Okay, 2016.
Yeah, 2016.
Okay, so almost 8 years maybe that we met. And you met me once in one meeting of multiple meetings of an herbalism program that I didn't even end up doing because I got kicked out of it. But that's a whole other story. It was mostly because I was going through crazy times with my ex-husband that I just divorced. And so she kicked me out of the program and told me I had to go focus on that, basically. And so you and I met that one evening, and we didn't even meet. Did we even talk?
We all sat in a circle.
We all sat in a circle in a room. And you just remembered
and we just
me.
Went around and oops, there I hit it.
You're fine. You're fine.
Excuse me. Yeah, we just went around and introduced ourselves and talked a little bit about us. And yeah, I have no idea how I pinpointed that that's where I knew you from, but...
So we figured that out and we've gotten back in touch. And so you actually finished the herbalism program.
I actually did not finish it. I did more of it than you did.
You did a lot more of it than I did.
But I did not
You actually
finish
probably
it.
learned some shit.
I did.
Which was the point.
It was
highly controversial.
Yeah,
how
it was
you learned
a good
stepping stone
in the direction of learning more about herbalism.
Right, but then you actually did more learning about herbalism.
Yeah. I went on to work with a different teacher. I went on to work with Sam Kaufman.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
He runs like a school. He used to be in San Antonio, Texas, but I think now he's somewhere in New Mexico now.
Okay. Did you have to go to San Antonio?
I did not. So I met him. I did a wilderness first aid certification with him, which was in Washington. And so it was like
So he came to Washington.
He came to Washington where he was teaching this wilderness first aid certification. And that was how I met him. And then I was like, I have to get his book and I have to work with him. So I ended up going to Kauai just a couple weeks after I did that certification, and I read his entire book on the flight over there. And
it must not be a big book because that flight is what, 5 hours, 4 hours?
Maybe I'm just a fast reader.
You were super
it's
speedy. It's chunky.
But a lot of it is, so like the first half is sort of about all the subjects that he teaches about, like wilderness first aid and stuff like that. And there's like a lot of stories in there and things. And then the second half is all just about individual plants and herbs.
So it must just be really easy digestible for you too, the material.
I don't know. I was just super into it.
You just sucked it up.
I devoured it.
Yeah, you did.
And I was like, I have to work with him. And so I remember when I was in Kauai, I actually was online stalking his school because they have programs where you can go and be in person, but they also have online programs. And the online programs are not like learn at your own pace kind of programs. Like you're actually still working with him like directly.
Right.
And so we had like calls together and stuff, and the school sends out like when you enroll and everything, they send you out your package, which has like all these different herbs in it, and then he teaches you how to use them and how to make different things out of them. And
that's cool.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. And I ended up over the next several months, I sort of stocked my home medicine cabinet with herbal medicines that I made. And I think currently I have like over 30 different individual tinctures that are like in my medicine cabinet. And then I have this like box that's just like full of all these different herbs. So like when I need something, I just like kind of rifle through there and find it and know what to do with it, know how to make it into something usable. Yeah.
That's so cool.
I agree.
It's really cool that you know medicine that way.
It's
that was my goal.
I always wanted, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like I always wanted to know more about plants. I always wanted to be able to like be hiking and like recognize
and
what
identify
the things were.
Mm-hmm.
Next on my list is trees. I'm not great at tree identification, but I want to be.
I know a lot of them, but I can't say that I'm like super knowledgeable. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I know a fair amount, but still I find like when I'm walking around, like I'm like, what the heck is
forestry
that?
Or something.
Right. I don't know. That might take all the joy out of it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It wouldn't be as fun. Yeah, I love all of that stuff. I also really got into like hunting for mushrooms and, you know, like.
Yeah, I would love to know more about mushrooms and fungi. I'd love survival skills too.
Me too.
That's another hobby.
That's why I was so drawn to that class. I did a Google search for that class, and that's how I found Becky Lerner, formerly Becky Lerner, Tara Rose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Who then was my Reiki Master teacher. And that was a whole other experience because I didn't even know what Reiki was when we started that herbalism class.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's responsible for attuning me. You know, I don't stay in contact with her anymore, but and you had already been attuned to Reiki, but you had been attuned differently from a different lineage, and so that caused controversy.
Yeah,
I caused controversy too.
Everything
I tend to do
controversy.
I tend to do that just because I'm a truth seeker and teller.
Yeah. So, it was late in 2015, and a friend of mine had just bought a piece of property in Washington, and she wanted to know about all of the plants and stuff that were on her property. And I remember her and I like hiking around her property and looking at plants, and you know, I knew a handful at that time, but then she's actually the one who found Becky Lerner to have her come out to her property to take her around and teach her about the plants, and she told me about her. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Interesting. That's so cool. And then I was like garage selling, and I found her book. And so I was like, hey, that's that gal that my friend was talking about. And so I read her book. And so that's how I had found her. Is after I read her book, I was like, oh, I totally want to work with her. And then I realized that she had that internship that she was doing, or apprenticeship or whatever she called it. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was how I found her.
Yeah. And so you actually kind of became an herbalist as opposed to I never followed through on that.
I mean, I'm not officially an herbalist. I don't have that many hours or anything like that, and I'm not like recognized or anything like that. It's more of a hobby, but I am an herbal medic. So I do have that certification, and I am wilderness first aid certified.
That's super cool. That's awesome. So this podcast is about love. Mm-hmm. So a little segue here before we get into your childhood. Do you mind telling us, for whoever's watching or listening, what plants you would recommend to enhance love or heal heartbreak?
Yeah, I mean,
I have a list, but...
Yeah, so I would say the number one thing would be rose. Yeah, like it's a wonderful heart chakra opener, and it really just, it can elevate you, both like in the like the internal like constituents and things like that, but also just like the energetic properties of it. But really, I would say rose. Like that would be my number one.
Yeah, highest vibrational flower that there is. I put some in your water.
I know.
I'm pretty obsessed with it. I've been wearing rose perfume since I think high school without even really knowing that.
Yeah, so smelling it, getting like a roller bottle and actually putting it on your heart chakra can be really, really helpful. Putting it in your bath, drinking it in tea,
Yeah, I think it's in our tea, actually, in the love tea. We're drinking love tea in addition. We're going to be so lovey after this. So I wrote down hawthorn, violet, pink rose, wild pansy or heart ease, apple blossom, rosy magnolia, lemon balm, motherwort, and rosemary.
Lemon balm. Yeah, that would be another top choice. For me.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
like lemon balm just in general for all of the properties that it holds. I mean,
and I love that it's so abundant and easy to find.
It really does take over your yard. I got some from that time, I think from somebody in her program.
And you
I
planted it?
one plant, and it's all over my yard.
Yeah, I mean,
it spreads everywhere.
Yeah, it's I believe in the mint family, and so it spreads like a mint.
Yeah. And the bees love it.
Over.
The caterpillars love it too.
I love it too, and it helps to actually like repel some of the more pesky bugs because they don't like that smell. So it actually can also work as like a bug repellent if you want to rub it all over.
Lemon balm also really chills you out, helps you go to sleep. I used to steep it, right, in hot water.
A little bit of lemon balm and some catnip. That's a good sleepy one.
Yeah, catnip is great too. I like catnip a lot. I don't grow it anymore, but I did years ago. My cats loved it too.
I don't need to attract any more cats into my yard.
I never noticed that the cats were in my yard, but my cats definitely loved it when I would take clippings. Yeah.
The place where I used to live, I had this big catnip just out front, and it was constantly just getting like pummeled by all the neighborhood cats. I was like, oh, you poor thing. It was like they would get in there and just like roll around on it. And I was
really?
Like, poor catnip of mine. But I lived in an area where there was just tons of cats that people had as like indoor outdoor cats.
Okay.
And so I guess
you must have been in Southeast.
They just like to hang out. I was actually in Clackamas, but
oh, were you?
Yeah, but they just love to demolish my catnip.
Huh.
So it didn't make it.
Yeah, I can't imagine. It's really interesting to see what animals like. I have a ton of mint, and then I have runner ducks. And my runner ducks, I keep planting things thinking that like they won't touch it. For instance, mint, because supposedly animals don't like mint, and they could care less about mint. But lavender, they keep laying on my lavender bush. I'm like, get off of this is never gonna last.
Yeah.
Like, get off of the lavender bush. Yeah. Anyways, animals, funny. They have their own minds. They have their own minds.
That's right.
They do their own things.
But I would say like really most fragrant flower, like the scent of them, it would be really good for like lifting that heart chakra and that love vibration. And then, rose quartz in conjunction with any of those is also a great choice.
Or amethyst.
That's right. Rose quartz just happens to be my personal favorite.
I have a pretty big chunk of it myself. Yeah, I like it too. Okay, can we segue into your childhood?
Beware. No, I'm just
Where were you born, or where did you grow up?
So I was born in San Francisco, California. And when I was almost 3, we moved to a place called Shingletown, which is in Northern California.
Where is that?
It's about a 30 or 45 minute drive sort of southeast of Redding, California.
Okay.
It's
pretty
close to Mount Shasta. It's at the base of Mount Lassen though.
Okay.
So Mount Lassen was my mountain.
Bernie Falls.
Yeah, pretty close to Bernie Falls. Yeah, you would drive typically there's 2 ways to get to Bernie Falls, but one of them would take you right through Shingletown. And
very pretty out there.
Very, very pretty. And
very isolated.
It's bigger now than when I was a child.
I can imagine.
When I was a child, there was 2 like small little stores that were those, you know, they were those type that had just a little bit of everything. Kind of like if you go up on Mount Hood, there's like Govey General. It was like that, but a little bit bigger. And there was 2, and they each had like a little gas station, and they were kind of competitors with each other, and they were just like right next to each other. And there was like 2 restaurants. One was the Shingle Shack, which was this teeny tiny little mom and pop type place that had like, I don't know, 4 tables in it. And then the other one was called Big Wheels, and it was much larger. And a lot of people in town actually worked there because there wasn't many places to work. So a lot of my friends' moms were like waitresses at Big Wheels. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
So what was it like to grow up in Shingletown?
It was awesome when I look back on it. It didn't feel awesome when I was growing up there all the time because it is really isolated and it is a really small town. And it was like, oh, I wonder what that would be like if I could like ride my rollerblades around all the time if there was concrete, because I didn't have concrete. You know, I had to go into town and go to the roller skating rink, and it was like I couldn't do that all the time.
Nature.
Yeah. So when we first moved out there, my dad bought a piece of property and there was nothing on it. And we lived in like a travel trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like he had put a driveway and there was a pond and a creek that went through our property. And so there was a travel trailer and we had no electricity. We had no running water. And there was, how many of us was there? There was my mom, my dad. I had 2 older brothers at the time. I had an older sister, and my mom was pregnant. Yeah. And we lived in a travel trailer that had like, you know, it was like me and my sister slept on the dinette, and then there was like the couch that folded out into a bed, and that's where my parents slept. And then there was like the little bunk bed, and that's where my 2 brothers slept.
We had a travel trailer like that when I was growing up too.
Yeah, I think that was like the style.
That was the thing in the 70s. We had the exact same setup.
Yeah.
Me and my sister slept in the top. My oldest sister got the kitchenette all to herself because she was older and a jerk. And then my mom and dad slept on the couch. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a lot of memories from that. That was a lot of our vacations.
That was our home, but
yeah, very different.
For a while my dad was like, he was like one of those handy sort of guys who like knew how to do things and build things. And so
did he end up building the house?
He got he built a really nice garage, but we got like a manufactured home.
Speaking of garages
that we had put on the property at some point, but he like, you know, did all the work to like run all the pipes and, you know, get running water, and I'm sure he paid somebody to do the electricity. And but you know, it was like eventually we got a well and all of that stuff, and then we had just like a buttload of animals. We had only about 2.5 acres, but we packed a lot of animals onto that property.
I bet you did.
And that was really fun.
We only had a 1/2 acre and we packed a lot of animals on the property.
Yeah, so we had horses and cows and goats.
We did not have cows. We had a goat.
we had
to get rid of it. We wanted pigs. We never got them.
So we got a couple of pigs every year, and then my dad would butcher them later in the year.
That's got to be hard.
And that was
especially after reading Charlotte's Web. How do you do that?
Yeah, that was my least favorite part. And so, you know, every year I was like, no, don't. They're my friends, you know? And then, you know, I'd come home from school and they were gone. But our freezer was stocked, and it was like, you know, that's life. That's life when you live in the country, I guess, you know.
It is. It's a lesson that things die, things end.
That's right.
And that, not that animals are of service to us, but in some ways, I think on a karmic level, they recognize that that is essentially the sustenance that we can use, right, energetically, to be in this body. I don't think the way that we take care of them or slaughter them is always
I'm not a fan of the big operations
or compassionate
that
or
go
the way
on.
that we consume them, right? But you know, it sounds like they were well loved in your family.
Yes, they were.
They were well loved. Yeah, I mean, I learned some significant lessons by having animals around for sure, and having them die. I have different trauma than you do. I don't have the pigs being my best friends, but yeah, I had some.
They weren't my best friends, but they were my friends.
Yeah.
Sue and Wilbur.
Oh my God, one was Wilbur. Oh my God, after all of that. Okay. All right, yeah.
But we did it, you know, it was like every year.
Were you in 4-H?
I wasn't.
Okay.
I think my brother was at one point, but I was never in 4-H.
Okay, I was.
But it was only that one year that I was like really attached to those two pigs, but it was something we did every year, you know, so it was like it had happened before and it happened after, but
those two pigs were special.
Pigs, they were my friends.
They were special. They
were so cute when they were little. They were just like the cutest little things.
And that's probably why. And maybe the time
all the time.
Maybe in the time of your life, they were really important too.
Agreed.
Yeah. For what they gave you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Name something you cannot live without.
Water.
That's a good choice. Me neither. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for so many reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Baths and streams and rivers and ocean and in my glass and a shower and
yeah, it's been my experience that so many things have come and gone that there's been plenty of times in my life where I thought I couldn't live without something or somebody, but then you do, you know?
Isn't that interesting?
That's the resilience of a human being.
Totally.
So, but water, can't live without that.
No, you're not going to survive very long without it. I don't know. Do we need food more than we need water? I think we can live without food, but not water.
Yeah, you can live without food most people could live without food for like up to 40 days. But you couldn't live that long without water.
No. Wow, I did not know it was 40 days.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on body fat, but yeah, as long as you have
That's
water.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Tell me something unique or interesting about you that only those close to you would know.
That's a tough one. Gosh, I don't know. Something unique or interesting about me that only those close to me would know. I need my feet. Like like a cat.
Like a cat needs their feet.
Like, like this.
Oh, you need your feet. I thought you meant like NEED. And I was like, well, of course you need your feet. Like they help you walk around.
No. like a cat. Like I need my feet.
Okay, that's interesting. I move my feet a lot, but I don't know that I need them.
I need my feet. Okay. So
I move my toes a lot when I get excited.
My husband is the one who like really brought it to my attention because like he's like, what are you doing? You're always kneading your feet on me. And I was like, oh, I do that. And then I realized I do it even if I'm by myself. Like I need my feet on each other. And
is it okay? What preempts it? Like, is it because you're happy or?
I think it's just like a comfort thing.
Okay.
And I noticed that
Like you're soothing yourself or?
Yeah, so my daughter, she's 2, and I noticed that from like right away after she was born, she does the same thing. She kneads her little feet together. She like sort of does this sort of thing, like one foot on the other foot. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if I've always done it. That's really cute.
Well, I guess your mom will probably know.
Well, then we'll never know because my mom passed away and I never asked her.
When did she pass away?
Last May.
Oh, very recently.
Yeah.
Wow. You have had a lot of change this year.
Yeah, so not the one that just passed, the one before. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
not
still.
a couple months ago, like a year and a couple months ago.
Okay. Yeah, but you've had a lot of shifts in your life in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. What are you naturally gifted in?
Communication. I've always had a knack for talking and listening and like being able to really go deep. You know, like that's always come easy to me.
What is your favorite thing to do when you're expressing love?
I guess I'm a hugger. Like it's like I like to hug and smile and just.
What do you like about hugging? I mean, I like it too. But.
Yeah, that's a good question. I like human connection.
Yeah.
You know, like there's something about.
That's the heart chakra.
Yeah.
I think in a hug, your heart chakra line up.
Exactly. Especially if you like hug on on the one side versus the other side, like you can really like be heart to heart with somebody.
Yeah. What was it like to grow up in your family? Tell me about it.
It was really difficult. I was always the sort of outcast in my family. I was always, too sensitive and too this, too that, so I never really felt like I fit with my family. And yeah, so it was difficult.
Remind me again, what is your horoscope? What is your sun, moon, and rising?
So I am a Taurus sun.
Okay.
And I have Aquarius moon and Aquarius rising.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense in what I know of you.
Yeah, I feel like
you're very grounded in your wisdom. Yeah, yes. You are.
and I feel like the Aquarius, like having so much Aquarius, because I have a couple other things that are also in Aquarius, and I feel like that gives me this ability to sort of zoom out and like see a bigger picture. But I'm still very grounded because I also have a lot of planets in Taurus.
Oh, interesting.
And so so I've got a good mix of air and earth going on there.
You really do. You're like fluffy soil.
Fluffy soil. Nobody's ever called me that before. Thank you.
You're really nutrient dense soil.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Maybe that's why you like plants so much.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Do you have a lot of plants at your house?
Taurus comes from. I don't, because I have all of my plants in my house are fake.
That's interesting.
Because I have a beautiful, wonderful cat that I love so dearly.
You also have a baby, right?
I have two children.
Yeah, but one is a baby.
I have a 2 and a 3-year-old.
Okay, they're both babies.
Yeah, but my cat is the littlest baby and the babiest baby, And
Loves to chew on stuff.
We call him the Great Destroyer.
Oh, okay.
He's the reason I can't have nice things.
Yeah.
He murdered all of my plants. I used to have plants.
Oh, okay.
I used to have plants.
Okay.
But he killed them.
Okay.
Systematically.
Yeah.
It didn't matter how high up I put them or what I tried to do with them.
I have one of those cats.
He,
chews on all of the leaves, rips them out of their pots, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep.
I have one of those.
Yeah, he destroys so much. And, I've had plenty of people be like, why do you keep that cat? And I'm like, don't you judge me. I'm like, he is a baby and I love him.
Aw, he's a baby.
He is. It's like cuddles under my chin and
that's how you make up.
Drools all over me. He's so cute.
That's really sweet.
I love that cat.
So they're good for the heart chakra too, speaking of which.
Yep. His
Okay.
purr is healing.
It is. I know. I have a boy cat that I love for that very reason. What is one of your earliest memories of feeling love?
So when I was 8, on my birthday, my parents went to town and they took my brother with them. And I was so mad about it. I was like, it's my birthday. Like, why didn't I get to go to town? Why did my brother get to go to town? Still a little bit peeved about it. But, but anyway, they brought me back my birthday present. And
that's why he got to go to town.
And it was a dog. And he was a little puppy. And his name was Blue. And that was
like Blue's Clues?
It was before Blue's Clues.
I know.
But yeah, his name
a little bit psychic.
His name was Blue, and he was a red healer.
Name for dog.
And
he was a red healer.
Mm-hmm.
You sure you didn't want to name him Clifford?
I'm sure. And I didn't name him. My brother named him because.
That's a good name, though.
That's what happened.
What came. Mm-hmm.
And so I would say my experience of having a dog was my first experience of love.
They're so great at it.
Because like I said, I never really felt like I belonged in my family, and like I never really felt like people understood me or accepted me. And then I had this dog who just loved me. And even though I had a bunch of brothers and sisters, there was a bunch of other dogs on our property, there was a bunch of other animals, he knew that he was mine and I was his. And
he had a soul contract.
Exactly. And I loved that dog so much.
How long did he live?
He passed away when I was about 18. So I had him for 10 years.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and he was my best friend, and we went everywhere together.
You did a lot together.
He was awesome, and yeah, so.
Lots of memories there.
Yeah.
Let's see. What makes you feel loved?
That's a good question. I really like food.
Okay.
So like if somebody makes me a meal that I didn't have to cook, I feel really loved. If somebody thinks about me enough to like bring me food, like unprompted, that I didn't have to ask for, that I didn't have to cook, I feel really loved. I think that's like a Taurus thing though, where I'm like, yeah, it's all about the food.
You're providing for me, and it's
food. But also I would say like, just like asking me like, how are you? Like, how have you been? How are you doing? Like, I find that, like I feel really loved when I get like a random text message from one of my girlfriends, just like, hey sis, how are you? Like that makes me feel loved. I'm like, oh, she was thinking about me and she cares about me and, and cares to know like what's going on in my life.
How are you?
Yeah.
Authentically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. What is your favorite thing to do when you're expressing love? Oh, I asked you that already. What? I lost my spot. What has been your greatest lesson in love? Sorry.
I would say being able to recognize my own needs and then also recognizing that I'm worthy of having those needs met and being able to express those things.
Good, powerful lesson, especially for women.
That's right. And it
took me so long to learn that.
It took me so long to learn it too. And I'm
God
like,
darn it.
And I'm like, oh man, if I had known that when I was like 25, man, things would have been a lot different.
We would have made different choices. However, we didn't know any better. So
that's right.
This was our path, and it was perfect. But you can't be the people that we are now without, But I think about that too. I've had some moments where I'm like, that would have been useful to know.
But you don't know what you don't know.
You sure don't know. And you have to run into somebody who actually will teach it to you, or that you even are receptive to learning something different, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. You getting comfortable?
Yep.
Good. What is one lesson in love and relationships you wish you would have learned earlier?
I guess we kind of just covered it.
Okay. So can you tell us more about the major shifts that happened for you at age 17?
Yes. I have a question for you, though. Like, why age 17?
I had that written down from our conversation.
Oh, okay.
A while ago.
I was like, oh, interesting.
I did questions about you right after I met you so that I wouldn't forget some of the details of your life, because I meet a lot of people. Yeah.
So when I was 17, I was very overweight. I was like pre-diabetic. I was over 220 pounds. My highest weight was actually 222 pounds. And I think...
Interesting number.
Yeah, when I saw that number on the scale, like I swear it did something to me. And I didn't know anything about numerology at the time, but now looking back on it, I'm like, oh, interesting. But yeah, so when I was 17, I was very overweight, and I had I was in a foster home, and the school that we went to was this like weird little school. It was kind of an alternative school, and sitting in class, it was like history, right? And it was just some video that was playing, and it was like, I couldn't even tell you what it was talking about. But at some point, I heard something that just kind of jumped out to me, and I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget it. But it was Richard Nixon, and he said, "Those who hate you don't win unless you hate them back and destroy yourself." And I was like, oh, that's gold, And I wrote it down, and I've never forgotten it. And I remember over the next several weeks, like thinking about it a lot and thinking about all the ways that I was like really angry, and I was like angry at, my parents, and angry at, just life, and angry with my body and all of these things. And so that was one of the things that started me on a path of healing, because I decided like, no, they don't get to win. And the only way for them to not win is for me to not play that game. And so I started trying to do things that were going to better me.
I can't believe you learned that at 17. Good for you.
And thank you.
You're welcome.
And so I started reading books like on, self-development and stuff like that. And then at some point I ended up back home, and I was in like a regular school, and I had this teacher, and I would say he was the next most pivotal person on that journey for me.
Why?
I will tell you.
You can tell me.
So he was like my junior health class teacher. And so he talked a lot about like prevention of illness and things like that. And he had this like program, and I was a good student. I got good grades. I didn't need extra credit, but he had this extra credit program where it was like, he taught us how to figure out our heart rate and that range, you know, to, I can't remember what it's called now, but there's like that sweet spot range for when you're exercising to lose weight.
Yeah.
And he taught us how to find that. And, you know, and it was like, if you exercise, you know, like this many days, you get this much extra credit. This many days, you get this much extra credit. And you have to keep track of your heart rate, and you have to keep track of what you did. And then your parents have to sign off on it. And so I started doing it. And even though, like I said, I didn't need the extra credit, and I ended up losing like, I think during that semester, I lost like 30 or 40 pounds and was like under, you know, like pretty good under 200 pounds at that point. And I remember at the end of the semester, like when it was time to turn in the extra credit, I had like my stack of papers that I was like bringing in there. And then I just put them in the recycle bin. Because I was like, I got what I needed and I didn't need the extra credit.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another piece for this teacher. He was also the person who introduced me to meditation.
Oh,
because
interesting.
he was a big believer in the power of the mind and the power of meditation. And he taught us about it. And he would do these short meditations with us in class, especially if he could tell that the class was like really tense or something. He'd like turn the lights off, have us all just like lay our head on the desk. And then he would like sort of guide us through like a little meditation. And he told us this story about his first wife. And it was so powerful for me. I'm like, I'm going to probably cry trying to tell this story, but.
Okay.
So they were together and they were in love and all these things. And she ended up getting cancer. And when she was going through this like journey of like, you know, chemotherapy and all of that, like she did not want to lose her hair. And so she had told him, because he didn't know anything about meditation before this experience with her. And she didn't either, but she was like, I'm going to try this meditation thing because I don't want to lose my hair. And, you know, I'm going to keep my hair. And so he said every night she would just be sitting in their room meditating. And at one point he asked her, like, what are you thinking about when you're meditating? And she said she was envisioning all these little gnomes tying knots in her hair to keep the hair in her head. And he said, at the point that she died, because she did pass away, she had lost every hair on her body except for the hair on her head. And she died with her bouncing curls still intact. And I was like, what?
That's crazy, yeah.
Like that blew my mind wide open.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that set me on this journey of like the energetic side of things and like the power of the mind, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so then I started incorporating like yoga and meditation and all these things into my daily practices and stuff. And over the next couple of years, I ended up losing over 100 pounds. And so that's about the shift that happened when I was 17.
Okay, so were you in a foster family growing up?
No, I was in a foster home for a while when I
Okay.
was a teenager.
Okay. And how did that come about?
Things were not good at home
Okay.
and were not good with my family.
Okay.
And
Was this when you were still living in the trailer?
no, we only lived in the trailer until the house came.
Okay.
That was like for like a year or two when I was like very young.
Very young. Okay.
And then at some point when I was in like middle school, we moved to Oregon.
Okay.
And my parents were no longer together. And my mom was with, you know, my evil stepdad. And I was causing too much trouble. That's what it came down to, is that I was causing too much trouble.
I'm sure you were.
Because I was being the buffer between him and my younger siblings.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it was.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the opposite of awesome.
Yeah. It was very difficult for you.
Yes. And so I ended up in a foster home because basically they didn't want to deal with me. And I was too much trouble and I was causing too much issues and all of those things.
How old were you?
I was like 16 and I was in the foster home for not too terribly long, like 6 to 9 months, something like that. And then, like I said, after I had that shift in my thinking, I ended up wanting to come home because I felt like I could do more good there for my siblings than I could not being near them. You know what I mean? And also I was on a mission at that point. Like I was gonna be better than they thought that I was. And I was gonna show them by being successful and healing and not being all the things that they said that I was and that I was gonna be.
Were you always overweight?
No, but I remember always thinking I was. So when I look back at pictures from when I was younger, I'm like, no, I just look like a normal kid. But I remember always thinking I was when I was younger.
Fascinating. Where do you think you got that from?
Probably my dad, because he was he had a lot of very specific thoughts about what a woman should be and what she should look like.
Right.
And and I didn't look like that.
And was honest about that.
Yeah. He was kind of a jerk.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see how that would definitely impact you. But also, and I'm not sure that you're aware of this, but weight, we generally gain weight as a protector.
Mm-hmm. I am aware.
Yeah, so that we have insulation between us and the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that people that are in their mind overweight, it's because they're generally protecting themselves from a hurtful situation.
Yeah, like
or environment.
My entire growing up life.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I know you're intuitive, so I was imagining that you had already thought or made that connection, but for those who are listening, maybe not.
Yeah, there was also a lot of like being overweight in my family.
Yes.
So like my grandpa, my mom's side.
It's normalized and it's kind of attributed to.
And my mom. And then also my
hereditary
dad.
And we're all big boned. And
yeah. And then my stepdad had some very distinct ideas about what a woman should be that were very opposite from my dad. He was more of like one of those, like he wanted women to be bigger. Like it was like the bigger, the better. Have some more food. Mm-hmm. Like he was like one of those creepy guys.
Yeah, that's fun. You had creepy people in your family too, huh?
Yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm, me too. Sorry about that.
I didn't choose it.
Okay. Well, theoretically, actually, you did. You just don't remember. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at least that's what I've come to know, is that we choose our families and our parents because of the lessons that we want. No different than choosing your pigs or your dog. Blue. Okay. So, what about in 2017?
Oh, yeah. So in 2017, I had a pretty bad head injury.
That's right.
Yeah, I had a traumatic brain injury that
it was right after we met.
Yeah, it was. So, I mean, well, we met in 2016 and it was October of 2017 that I had the traumatic brain injury. And
how did it happen?
I'd rather not talk about that.
Okay.
But it happened and it was very unpleasant. And it kind of like put a stop to the life and the trajectory that I had been on at that point. I like I had a healing practice
That's right.
and then I was also like taking these other courses to incorporate other things and other modalities into my healing practice, and was like, I felt like things were really starting to like ramp up, and like, I was having like a more consistent like client base, and things were going really well. And then I had this head injury that just, it was like, nope, none of that's happening now. All of that's gone. And I resisted that for a while, thinking like, oh, I'll be able to get back, into that or into there. And then the healing process just took so much longer than I could have possibly anticipated. I didn't start to feel like myself again till probably like 2019. And then even then, like I had a lot of concerns about like would I ever really function the way that I had before? And I mean, maybe I don't know.
Well, Aquarius rising and Aquarius moon, I can imagine. Yeah, that was at the forefront of your mind, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like I had like some memory issues, and like technology became really difficult for me. Like like reading text on screens would just give me like this awful headache. So I had previously, a lot of my business had been like centered online, and all of a sudden it was like I couldn't really handle emails. Like I still kind of have trouble with emails. Like it's not
your modality
it's not
of conversation
as hard as it used to be for me, but it's like something about the text on the screen. Like it's harder for my brain to process it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so
you really see things differently now.
Yeah.
And probably
have changed
many ways.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how have you changed? How did it change you? I don't know why, but I'm very fidgety today.
I would say I'm more grounded than I was before. And I'm more realistic about things than I was before.
Interesting. Why do you think that happened?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I also noticed that like my writing changed too. So like the way that I used to write certain letters or numbers just seemed to change. And all of a sudden I realized I was writing differently than I had been before. And not like my handwriting got like worse or something, but like literally the way
letters
that
are different.
that I wrote them became different.
Yeah.
And I didn't really notice when that happened, but I noticed at some point that it had happened, and I was like, huh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I guess I've gotten a lot more curious about things since then, because I've seen how incredibly fragile the human body is, and how incredibly resilient the human spirit is. And I think maybe that's partly why I've become more realistic about things. Like I'm more aware of like the bodily limitations that I have in this human form. Even if I have this, very expansive, energy and potential and power of the mind and all of that, like it still is reined in a way by the limitations of like the physical body. Like humans are interesting, terrible, beautiful creatures.
We sure are. Love that. Okay. Let's see. What made you decide to have more children?
Yeah, so that is another interesting question. I actually have been told most of my life that I couldn't have children.
I remember you saying that.
And, you know, so I went through this whole journey with that of like coming to terms with that and grieving that because, you know, when I was like growing up, I just always assumed that someday I would have kids. And when I was married to my first husband, we were trying to have children and it wasn't happening. And then I was told that I couldn't have children. And that was a big part of the reason why that relationship didn't work out.
Interesting.
Because he really wanted to have children.
Wow.
And then he immediately got with somebody else and got her pregnant. And I was like, okay, all right, that
settles
hurt me deeply.
I can imagine.
You know,
yeah.
But also it was like, okay, I guess that's the case then.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so then I ended up in a relationship with a man who didn't want to have children. And that was fine because I couldn't have children. And it was like, okay, we'll be in this relationship together and we won't have any children. And then about 8 years into that relationship, I started to feel really off. And this was just after I started to feel more like myself after the head injury. I remember I was like working out regularly again and, you know, paying more attention to like what I was eating and all that and just getting like my health on point. And I had been feeling really good. And then I started feeling really not good. And I was like, man, what is wrong with me? Like, what is going on? I've never been so tired in my life. Like, what is happening right now? And I remember thinking like, oh, great. Like I probably have some disease or something and I'm like dying. I need to go see a doctor, you know? And I remember telling my husband at the time, like, I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, I feel like something's really, really wrong with me. And my dog had been acting different toward me. And I was like, man, it's bad. Like, she can sense it. She knows I'm dying. You know, like I really thought I was dying. And he was like, you know, like,
did he take you seriously?
He did. And he was like, you know, he was like, he knew that I had a really irregular cycle. So sorry, TMI, everybody. But, and he was like, well,
I think you can talk about your cycle. It's
have
okay.
have you started yet? Or like, is there a possibility you're pregnant? And I was like, why would you even say that? Like, it was so bizarre to me that he even said that. I was like, no, why would that? You know, like it
wasn't even on the table for you.
It took me so off guard when he said it. But the fact that he said it, then my brain started going like, well, I haven't started. And then I'm like looking at the calendar and I'm counting the days and I'm like, yeah, even with my irregular cycle, like I probably should have started by now. I'm like, well, I better get a test and see because, you know, like that would be better than dying, you know?
Yes. How old were you?
I was 33.
Okay.
And
33 is such a big, that it keeps coming up lately. It's such a big year for our people.
I was a caregiver at the time for a paraplegic man. And he needed some groceries and stuff. So I was out grocery shopping for him and I was walking by the aisle with the pregnancy test and I was like, oh yeah, I should get one of those. And I threw one in the cart. And when I got home, you know, I put the groceries away and everything. And I was like, I'm going to go pee on this stick. And then I did. And it said I was pregnant. And I was like, I couldn't compute it. And I was like, and I remember Googling what could cause a false positive on a pregnancy test. And because like, I just was like, that can't possibly be true. Like that can't be right. And I remember looking that up on Google and I'm like looking at this pregnancy test and just like not being able to comprehend it. And I came out of the bathroom and I told the man I was caregiver for, I was like, I'm sorry, I have to go back to the store. I forgot something. And I went back to the store and I was like the lady who just like grabbed like all the pregnancy tests. Like I didn't actually swipe the shelf, but I might as well have. I grabbed like one of like every different pregnancy test that was in there. And over the next couple of days, I took all of them and they all said that I was pregnant. And I was like still just so much in shock. Like I didn't really believe it until I finally went to the doctor and heard the heartbeat. And I was like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. I was in shock, like so in shock. Like I just I really couldn't comprehend it.
Yeah, you couldn't wrap your head around it because you convinced yourself otherwise.
Yeah, and I had grieved it and gotten over it and was like, okay, I'm not having kids. That's not in the cards for me. And then here I was looking at like all of
10
these pregnancy tests. And then at the time, my husband worked a really weird schedule. And so it had just so happened that I hadn't actually seen him because he was coming home when I was already in bed asleep. And then he would be gone by the time I got up. And so I was like, okay, I know I'm going to see him on like, it was like the Friday that was coming up. And I was like, and I have to tell him. And I remember being like scared about that because like we had been under the impression that we weren't having kids, you know? So it was like, oh my gosh, like I have no idea how he's going to react. Like, I don't know if he's going to want this baby. I'm definitely going to keep this baby because like what a miracle, right? And so anyway, when I told him, he was so happy. And I was like shocked about it. But I guess like over the years, like he had started to like soften his heart about wanting children. And he had told me that he had been wanting to talk to me about adoption in the months leading up to me finding this
how prophetic of him
pregnancy test. And so he was really, really happy. And I was really, really relieved that he was happy. Because I was like in my mind, like planning my exit strategy. I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Because, you know, like
it's worth it to me.
Yeah. I was like, I'm definitely keeping this baby, you know? And then we ended up having another one. Like I was pregnant again within like 6 months after having my son.
Wow.
And that was a surprise also. And yeah, didn't expect that.
Okay.
And
so now you're the mother of 2 babies that you never thought you would have.
Yep.
How's that going?
Awesome. I love them.
Yeah.
They are the best. They're the best thing in my life. And they have, they have changed me in ways that I couldn't have anticipated. And it is so fulfilling to be their mother and like be able to like witness them. It's like I grew them in my body and then I continued to grow them outside of my body. And then, you know, like, and now I'm like watching them turn into like these little people who like talk and have thoughts and, you know, like thoughts of their own and feelings. And it's just blows my mind every day.
Trip.
Yeah.
It is. Being a mother is a trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the most challenging part about being a parent? I
would say like having to learn how to do all of these things that, you know, like I had thought that I wasn't going to have kids. And so there was a lot of things that I just didn't think about. And that I just didn't really put like thought or time and attention into. And then all of a sudden, when I have these 2 little beings that I'm responsible for, now those things are things that I have to think about. And included amongst those things is just like the how to parent. You know, it's like I didn't have a good example. Like there's no like real like manual for it.
Nope.
And it's not even as simple as like, okay, well, here's what my parents did, do the opposite. Because it's like, well, that wouldn't be good either. You know, so finding this like this path of like how to be a good, caring, safe, nurturing mother for them while still teaching them how to like how to be in the world, you know, because they're going to grow up to be adults someday, and there's certain things that, you know, that are important to learn to be a well-functioning adult. You know, I feel like my mom missed the mark there, because
you don't think you're a well-functioning adult?
I do think I'm a well-functioning adult, but it is not the case with most of my siblings.
Okay.
And you know, and so it's like I've been estranged from most of my family, most of my adult life, because I've been on a path of healing, and they just went on the path that they were on.
Least resistance.
And
same with my family.
The only other sibling of mine who took, like, I guess, like a higher road, I would say, is my older brother. And even him and I had been estranged for years, and we only reconnected like last year. And so we've been getting to know each other again, and he is such a fantastic man. And I'm like, man, we made it. Like, him and I did it. Like, we made it. He's such a fantastic person and a fantastic man.
That's awesome.
I'm just so proud of him. And he has well-functioning children who are, like, you know, teenagers and becoming adults. And I'm like, yeah, you did it, bro.
That's awesome that you have him.
Yeah, it's been really nice, like, reconnecting, getting to know him again.
What do you think is the point of being in a relationship?
That's a good question. I feel like humans are meant to be in connection with other humans, and that's why we have that innate drive to want to be in partnership with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of it is, like, the ability to build something with someone and have your strengths and weaknesses sort of be compatible in a way that that amplifies things and is also a nice space for growth to to, like, build something together.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, I don't know if that's just me, but it's like, you know, like, I don't want a house of cards, you know, like, I want to build something real.
I can't believe you just said that. I was just talking about that series last night. That's funny. Yes, I agree with you. And you've had a lot of practice at that too. You've had a couple of major relationships in your life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great advice, by the way. So, what's one big decision you have made in your life that has had the most significant impact?
That's a good question. A big decision in my life that had the most significant impact. Gosh, I don't know, because I feel like when I look back, some of the decisions I made that had the most significant impact didn't feel like big decisions when I made them. They were just, you know.
Why do you think that they weren't big decisions when you made them?
Just because I think the younger version of me didn't realize the significant impact that those decisions would have on my life. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a tough
Hindsight.
one.
Okay.
Yeah. Not sure how else to answer that.
That's one. Fine. That's okay. There's no right answer. What's an achievement that you're really proud of?
I had 2 babies.
I'm really proud of being a mom too.
I had them at home. I did an unmedicated home birth with both of them.
Wow.
I'm really proud of that.
You should be. I also did an unmedicated at hospital birth, but I had a nurse midwife.
Yeah, I had a team of midwives, same team for both my kids. And it was really wonderful. Like, I'm kind of a homebody. I'm fairly introverted person.
Me too.
And being able to be in my own space where I was comfortable.
I can only imagine.
Like, and could just really go at my own pace.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So that would be.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
You had the right support, it sounds like. What's the most difficult decision you've ever made and why?
It's another tough one.
Because you've made some tough decisions over the years.
Yeah, the most difficult decision. Yeah, I'm not sure I can like pinpoint what the most difficult decision I've ever made was.
Okay.
I'm sure it probably had something to do with being in, in relationship to someone.
Mm-hmm. Those tend to be the most difficult decisions.
Yeah. I was with a really wonderful man for many years before my current husband. And leaving that relationship was very difficult because he was so wonderful. Like,
but you wanted different things.
But exactly, it was like he was older than me and he'd already had kids. Like I said, I didn't think I could have kids.
Right.
But I still wanted somebody that I could like grow with and build something with. And he was like at this different place in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he was so much older than me. And as much as I wanted to believe that the age difference didn't matter, it kind of did because we were at different places in our life. And so, leaving that relationship was very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And also was very amicable. And he's one of my best friends to this day.
That's awesome.
Because he's awesome and he's amazing and I love him and he loves me. And, it's just we weren't, it wasn't meant to be that we would continue to be in like a romantic relationship together.
That's amazing.
But it was still really hard to like
let it go.
Actually, like make that decision and then have to communicate it to him and
then see him move on
with the heartbreak and see him with heartbreak and like just all those
steps.
pieces. Like it was hard.
It is. It's very, very difficult. Relationships are very messy.
Yeah, like
that's
was
why
like,
I asked you about the heart mending.
Yeah, like it was just so hard because there wasn't really. It would have been easier if there was something bad about the relationship or like if he was a mean person or something like that. But he was not, and there wasn't anything bad about the relationship. It just wasn't. It just wasn't what I needed.
Yeah, or what he needed.
Yeah.
Like. Yeah. What's the most exciting thing that you've ever done?
Done a lot of exciting things. That's another tough one. My goodness. Oh man, what's the most exciting thing I've ever done? So, in 2016, when I went to Kauai, I went there on a solo trip and it was my first time traveling solo. And I just explored the island and I made fast friends with a gal who was like rooming in the same, we were renting the 2 rooms that were upstairs above a healing center on Kauai, and we became fast friends. And so we did a bunch of stuff on the island together and did these amazing hikes and walked the labyrinth together. And we had a blast. And I had never traveled by myself before that. And I think I'd only been on an airplane once before that. And, and so it was, that was really big and really exciting. And it was amazing. And that was the year I turned 30. And so I got to, sit on the beach and watch the sunrise on my 30th birthday over the ocean. And I'd always lived on the West Coast. So I'd seen the sun set countless times, but I'd never seen the sun rise over the ocean. And so that was really, really amazing.
It is a really cool experience.
Yeah.
Kauai is my favorite island. I'm about to go there. I'm particularly in love with Honolulu. I think it's one of my favorite places on earth. I can't wait to go back. There's something magical about that island.
Oh, I love it there.
The energy is
I can't wait to go back either. I have attempted it at least once, but there was things that came up and it wasn't to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved the island. I had such a good time, and it was so magical.
I'll have to bend your ear about some things to do while I'm there.
All right. Well, I have a good friend who lives on the island too, and she does like all sorts of like tours and things of like some of the really cool places. So
that would be really cool. Yeah. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay. When were you the happiest and why?
So aside from just that's tough because you can experience a range of emotions all at the same time.
Agreed.
And so I would say in some ways I'm the happiest right now because I am a mother and I have my kids and I love them and I really, really enjoy being a mom.
That's awesome.
And they bring me just so much joy. But if I was to answer that question like outside of kids, I would say that it was when I was in that relationship that had been really hard to leave. Like I was so happy in that relationship in so many ways. Like we had so much fun together. But now looking back on it, I can see too that like I don't think he ever understood me, but I think he accepted me. And I didn't realize how beautiful of a gift that was.
Yeah.
At the
time.
How
much you needed it.
Yeah.
Especially based upon how you grew up.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so like I think that was the first time in my life I had been in a relationship, whether it was a friendship or otherwise, where I had like genuine acceptance from somebody. And like it's like, no, he definitely didn't understand me. Like I was like something else completely, but he was fascinated by me and he accepted it and was just like, he's like, you are a mysterious, beautiful creature, you know? And, but he didn't ever try to like change me or judge me or make me feel badly about
Sounds like
myself.
Unconditional love to me.
That's why he's still my best friend. You know, like I love him so much.
That's really sweet. Ooh. Okay. So 2 things about the work that you do. Can you tell us more? We're making a left turn here. Can you tell us more about the 13 chakras and how we can become out of alignment?
Oh man. I mean
there's so much to say there.
Yeah, becoming out of alignment. I mean, that's easy. Just don't pay attention to your energetic body.
Okay, so for somebody who doesn't understand what that means, what does that mean? I know what that means.
Yeah, so I'll just shift myself a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the easiest ways to get out of alignment with your energetic body is to just not pay any attention to it, which most people do by default because most people just are unaware of their energetic body. So the best thing you can do to start to bring your energetic body like into alignment is to start becoming aware of it and start working with it. And one of the easiest ways to do that is just literally to envision your aura around you like an egg-shaped bubble and fill it with a color you like. That's the simplest, easiest way. It's just a simple way to like visualize and just see this egg-shaped bubble and then fill it with a color. My favorite is some kind of bright pink.
Mm-hmm.
I like bright pink.
Mm-hmm.
You can, of course, take that and go further in all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
You can, if you're a really sensitive or empathic person or a very introverted person, you can then enclose that bubble like by envisioning like a hardened eggshell around it so that it's still permeable, but it's not as easily penetrated.
So an energetic protection.
Yeah, but I would say like that's the first step for somebody who is just like completely new to any of this, doesn't know anything about their energetic body. Just start becoming aware of your aura.
Yeah.
And you can shift your energy by changing the color in your aura.
Yeah. What about the chakras?
So, I mean, the chakras, there's plenty of information available on chakras and how to work with them. And I'm trying to think the best way I'm trying to talk about it in a way for somebody who like doesn't know what I'm already talking about,
right.
Which can sometimes be a little difficult because I can just start talking sometimes like as if people are already like have a base level of knowledge.
Well, we know that there are energy centers within your body and outside of your body.
That's right. And we also have like major chakras and we have minor chakras.
Yes.
So we have like the 7 main or major energy chakras that most people know about that are within the human body. And then there's, like you said, several that are outside of the human body, going from below your feet to, I mean, there's a bunch of them.
Yes.
All up above your head.
Like an antennae.
Yeah. Like there's one that sort of hangs out back here. And
I'm always smudging that one.
Well,
because we tend to store stuff behind us that we don't want to deal with.
And also that's one of the ways that like negative energy things can sort of slip into our aura from behind, because we're very aware of what's happening in front of us for the most part, but you're not always aware of what's happening behind you.
And it's also how we receive energy because it comes through us.
Yeah.
And we express it outwards and receive from here.
Yeah. So I mean, the simplest thing to do is just start learning about your chakras.
Yes.
You can, of course, go and like see somebody who works with chakras who can teach you more about them, and you can get more of like an experiential knowledge of what that feels like. When I work with people and I'm going through each of the chakras, like it's a participatory thing between me and the person on my table. And and so they're learning about each of their energy centers as we're going through them. And I work with 13 chakras. And it's an Atlantean modality that I learned from my mentor, who is this wonderful woman.
Of course you're Atlantean.
Yeah. She's the gal I know who lives on Kauai now.
I am as well.
When I met her, she lived in Washington. That's when I first started working with her. So she was my Reiki teacher. And I also went on to do all sorts of work with her. She was just we worked very closely in like a mentor apprentice type relationship for many years. And she taught me so much. Like she taught me Reiki. She taught me the Atlantean energy system. And she also taught me how to use hypnosis for past life regressions. Gosh, what else did she teach me? She taught me all sorts of stuff.
What was the most interesting thing that you've ever discovered while doing a past life regression session with someone?
That I was regressed, or that I regressed somebody else?
How about both, or one, or whatever came to your mind just now that you made that face for?
There's been some wild stuff that's happened.
I'm sure.
There was a gal that I regressed, and she was like an alien on another planet. And that was really fascinating. And there was like words that she said that were definitely not
English.
of this language or, you know, nothing I'd ever heard before. So that was pretty cool. I also regressed somebody who, it was a much darker regression. I regressed somebody who regressed into a lifetime where they were like a serial killer. That was really spooky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was spooky.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't ask for a lot of details, as you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
For myself, you know, I've regressed into a lot of different lifetimes, and some were just really ordinary.
Yeah.
And some were really awesome and cool and extraordinary. I through the work that I was doing with the Atlantean energy system, we did a lot of regressions during that time and that work together, and a lot of it was focused on regressing back into a lifetime in Atlantis, because my mentor believes that that most of us who feel who have that feeling or that pull toward Atlantis, it's because we lived lifetimes,
of course,
during the time of Atlantis. Yeah. And or Lemuria.
Same.
And she'll do a lot of regressions into those lifetimes so that you can sort of regain like pieces of yourself from those lifetimes. And so that was really, really cool. I regressed into lifetimes where I was just like an ordinary person in Atlantis. I regressed into lifetimes where I was like a priestess in a temple on Atlantis. I regressed into at least one lifetime where I was one of the scientists doing experiments on people during Atlantis. I regressed into a time when I was a mermaid.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty typical.
Yeah, and that was really cool. And just the way that like the healing temples and stuff were set up, and the way that crystals were used in doing the healing, and the way that the sound vibration was used, not only from like the voice, but like the way that it echoed in the chambers and stuff, was really, really fascinating. Yeah, so I mean, I've done hundreds of regressions, like personally, and then for other people as well. So it's hard to choose what was the coolest.
I have not done hundreds. I'm actually about to do one on a podcast in 2 podcasts. Yeah.
Sweet.
So, yeah. I mean, you know, we will not do a 4-hour regression, but yeah. Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah. So that should be very interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's round this out. Let's get back to love. How can we incorporate more love into our lives?
Yeah. I mean, really with starting with yourself, and, you know, doing the work necessary to unravel your own traumas, and to accept yourself, and to accept the reality of where you are right now, and that's okay. You know, it's okay if right now you don't love yourself. You will get there. When I first started my journey of self-love, I remember somebody telling me, like, you have to, like, or, you know, like, tell yourself that you love yourself. Like, look in the mirror every day and say, I love you, even if it feels like a lie. And then find something you love about yourself and focus on that thing. And I remember at the time, like, I couldn't think of one thing I loved about myself. And I did it anyway. Went, stood in the mirror and looked myself in the eyes and just said, I love you. I love you. I love you. And I did it every day. And then eventually I was like, you know, I have pretty good fingernails. they're really nice, you know, like women pay a lot of money for fingernails like mine, and mine are natural. I love my fingernails, you know? And so like, it was like, that was the first thing that about like my physical body that I could be like, oh yeah, I love that about myself, you know? And then it just kind of grows from there.
It does.
You know, and give
it's just
yourself
like gratitude.
Yeah, you got to give yourself that time and space to allow that to grow and to cultivate, because like it's like a bud that's closed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And you have to keep nurturing it and give it the safety to be able to open.
Yeah.
And so I would say that would be my biggest advice.
How do you feel we can incorporate more love for ourselves and the world around us?
Be the change that you want to see.
You
know, like smile at people, you know, bring your friends flowers for no reason, you know, like put flowers out in your home just because it makes your home feel beautiful, you know, do something nice for a stranger, you know, like just be that change, you know, that would be it for me.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you for having me. This was a wild ride. It felt like we went all over the place. We went from plants to Atlantis.
Well, I knew it would be interesting. You dabble like I do. You've accomplished a lot and been through a journey.
Yeah. Life is amazing.
Life is amazing. And you're in a good spot. So it's really nice to hear all of the things that you've pursued, and that, you know, it hasn't always worked out like you thought it would, but
yeah, that's life.
Yeah, but that is life, right? Yeah. So thank you for sharing your story and going on the journey with me.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me here.
You're so welcome.